Everybody, hi, welcome to this webinar. It's called Getting Ready for Tax Season with TaxDome and Joe Cass. So let me just give you a quick little introduction as to who we are. My name is Ilya. I'm a co-founder of TaxDome, and I'm going to be kind of half moderator, half participant in this webinar with Joe. Looks like this video is not loading for some reason, but there's a really pretty little picture of myself in a bit. Oh, there it is, saying hello. So hi, guys. All right, next, this is Joe. So for those who don't know him, Joe is a practitioner just like you. He's been in business for 27 years, and he has what he describes as a high volume practice. So he's got over 1,000 clients that he processes annually. And I met Joe because he is the founder of a Facebook group called Do Taxes Make Money. And I saw that he posted in there that he started using TaxDome about a year ago and used it for last tax season and had found it very helpful for him for last tax season, but he was using it in a very limited fashion. So Joe was only really using the portal and signatures and was not using any of the automation, was not using any of the more advanced features that we offer that really deliver so much value. So what I wanted to do is I reached out to Joe, and I thought he was a perfect example of that we can really highlight as kind of a poster child, so to speak, of somebody, because we know that there are many, many firms in the same scenario where they were using TaxDome, or they're thinking about using TaxDome, or they've used portals, or they've used signature tools, but they haven't really been able to put it together for one reason or another. Maybe they're worried about it. Maybe they don't know where to start. Maybe they find it intimidating. So my goal was to get in contact with Joe and in 3 sessions, see what we could do. So Joe and I met 3 times, just like our onboarding team is available for anybody to meet with. It's free, it's included with every session. And we met 3 times, and I wanted to have this webinar to specifically talk about Joe's personal experience as a practitioner who was not using any automations and has an existing process, and really talk about how we went about that and hear from him firsthand into what his experience was. Joe, before I get started, did I misspeak in any of the things that I mentioned?
No, you're 100% on point.
Okay. So first off, we keep using the word automation, but let's talk a little bit. What is an automation? So we're going to talk about the automations available in TaxDome and talk to you about how you can incorporate them into your workflow. Obviously, you met Joe, but we're going to go really in depth into his actual pipeline, and we're going to go talking about how to really get started using automations within your practice. So the first thing I really want you guys to understand is there are so many automations being triggered every single second. So just this year, more than 1.5 million automations have been triggered by practitioners just like you. And this number is growing tremendously every single month. The more firms are using this. So just to put some numbers on it, more than 650,000 emails were automatically sent. This means that previously somebody would write 650,000 emails that they no longer have to do with TaxDome. Think of the amount of hours that takes either from you or from staff, people that you're paying for, right? That's hours that you could be using towards adding value to your clients, actually delivering the service that they hire you for, and not the administrative tasks that come with running any business or being an employee of a business. So that's just on the communication aspect of it. Even if you don't use any of the other things, think of just email, right? Every single business has email. 650,000 emails were automatically sent just last year by practitioners. This shows you the scale of how people are using this and how impactful this is. Now, we wanted to split this up into client-facing and firm internal, because this is, again, one of the ways that TaxDome is different than other software, is that instead of you using a portal and using a workflow solution that don't speak to one another, you're able to have both your client-facing communication and everything that relates to your communicating, interacting with clients in any way, coupled with your internal firm workflow. So what I mean by that is, in one place, you can have your jobs and your tasks and communication between your team in the same exact place as you have messages being sent to clients or extra engagement letters being signed by them. So really, I wanted to just show you the scale of what people are doing. So in a way, to kind of create almost a little bit of FOMO for you that those aren't using this, to show you that, number one, it is extremely possible and many people are using it. And 2, show you exactly how to get started with doing this. So my goal is to have that number be at least 15 million next year, just so you guys understand, and hopefully much, much more. So just to give you kind of an intro as to TaxDome workflow and how this works, we make it really easy and really clear for you to see whose ball is the court in, right? So does the client have to do something, or do I have to do something? And TaxDome's workflow and the pipeline automations make that part really, really, really easy for you. And that's the simplest way I would describe it, is that you never have to wonder, oh, am I waiting on the client or is the client waiting on me? It's going to be abundantly clear for you at every step of the way exactly who you're waiting on. So once you've done that part of, you can see who's there, you can remove the administrative hassle from yourself. So Joe, I think we talked about the organizer. We'll talk a little bit about that. Can you just talk a little bit about what you used to do with organizers, or your intake forms, whatever you called them beforehand, and that process versus now with the dependency that we've created?
Yes, absolutely. I've been against organizers for many, many years. As all tax pros know, they're too long and no one fills them out completely, except for that one guy who fills it all out. And it's a big time waster for tax pros. So I created what I call a tax checklist, which is an abbreviated 2-page form of the source documents that I need. But with the TaxDome organizer, I can do more than I could ever do before manually. Because of these conditional parameters that one can set, I have several hundred clients who have rental property. All I have to do is ask a question in the organizer, do you have rental property? And if the client clicks yes, a special page opens up only if they say yes, and they can put in their rental property information. Same thing with self-employment income. Only if they click yes, does it open up. So a TaxDome organizer is much shorter and more condensed than the traditional 30, 40-page organizer that was printed on paper, and clients are more likely to fill out the whole thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And then, well, what about the other part of, so before you used to have to track when clients submitted their information and you didn't, right? Can you talk a little bit about that now with how you have that set up? And did you, the work you no longer do with having to kind of check up on them? And really, I guess what I'm trying to go for is this is kind of the dependency, in that if you're waiting for the client to submit the organizer, you don't need to do anything. And as soon as they do it, these automated actions are triggered.
Yeah, it's so great. Because of COVID, so many clients are remote now. And we all know how difficult it is to track 1,000 different emails from hundreds of different clients, all coming in all times of the day. Keeping track of the stage that each tax return is in manually is really challenging. It takes a lot of time. But with the TaxDome organizer, as soon as it comes back, TaxDome automatically puts it in a new column and says, Joe, you have to work on this tax return now. It's ready for you. I don't have to manually do that or reach out to the client anymore. It's all automatic. It's like having another person in your office that doesn't need to be paid.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's exactly, and so that's Joe's personal setup, right? Is he has an organizer. Joe does not use an engagement letter at this stage as an automation, but what I'm going with this is that you can set up your own customizations, right? So this is fully customizable to your firm. So for example, and we'll go through some of these, you can create combinations of dependencies so that when X happens, you can have something else happen. So for example, and we'll go through this with Joe, is oftentimes when you're, done preparing the return, you need to get paid and you need the 8879 signed. What we have here is that when both of those things happen, so when your client signs the invoice, signs the 8879 plus pays the invoice, you can have something else happen. The same thing when you mark when your admin or your preparer finishes the return and just marks it done, you can have an automatic update go to the client. So these are just some examples of these automations that you can set up in dependencies that are fully customizable for your firm and really can remove that administrative hassle that many firm owners and admins have to deal with. So I wanted to ask a quick poll here. Where are these polls here? So first thing I want to ask is, are you using automations in TaxDome? And tell us a little bit about it, because I think this is, goes to really the heart of what we want to talk about is we believe that many people are using TaxDome, but it's still not really using those automations that really can make it super useful for you. So we want to understand the scope of those of you that are using TaxDome, and those of you that aren't using TaxDome, let us know. And so we can understand whether you're using automations, to what scale you're using them, and how big a part of a practice it is for you. And for those of you that are using it, I really want to understand how impactful has it been, right? So those of you that do use it, and Joe, I mean, I guess we can go to you. How would you answer these questions in terms of the poll questions that I put up?
Well, I am using automations now, thanks to you, and I'm so glad that I am. The automations help in two major areas: client communications, which we're constantly dealing with, and we all fall short of client communications. TaxTome has so many automated client communications that it fills the gaps that you can't fill even if the day was 50 hours long. The other thing it does is file management. We are constantly moving files around, whether they're electronic or physical files. During tax season, we are constantly moving files around to a different place that we hope to remember what needs to be done and when. TaxDome does that automatically in workflows by putting the file in the correct place in your workflow. You always know what you can work on, and you never waste time with a file that doesn't require your attention. It's amazing.
Awesome. Awesome. So Joe, let's go over to you and let's talk a little bit about your, the process that we had. So do you mind sharing your screen? Because the first step that we had, which we'd recommend for any practitioner, right? This is always step one, is put your process on paper. And this is, I think, a really important point I want to get at, because I think so many people always wonder, I don't know where to start, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. And the first place to start is your existing process. Change nothing. So that was my homework to Joe, was write down your process on paper, exactly what you do step by step. And Joe, can you walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought about the different types of clients that I have. I have 100% remote virtual clients. And then I have clients who are partially remote for document upload, but then they come to an in-person appointment to finish. And then I have an in-person appointment with all paper documents, but they want a digital copy of the return. And you help me understand that for automation purposes, type 2 and type 3 client are really the same thing. And I was able to combine those for a workflow based on your recommendation. And then I still have type 4 clients, which are in person. They don't have any digital documents. They have all paper documents. That's a separate thing. But for 1, 2, and 3, they're all being automated with TaxDome.
Okay. So we had you put it on paper, and then I guess and I guess this is an important point. Again, this is exactly what you've been doing for years, right? Everything on this paper, you didn't come up with something new. You literally just wrote what's in your head on a piece of paper. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, this is my system. And I have a very regimented, until now, analog system that I used to document with my tax return process worksheet. This was my attempt at controlling client communication and file management. I had it all on this one piece of paper, but this required me to do so much manual work that is now automated in TaxDome. I really can't wait for tax season to start again.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I guess that's the main thing I wanted to really get across to people is step one, write down your process on paper, exactly what it is. So once you've done that, right, then now comes the fun part. Now is when you actually analyze it. And my advice to Joe was, okay, find your repeatable items. You're like, I do that. Once this happens, I do this, right? Client gets me the information, then I do X. So what I did is I had Joe highlight those and then find those repeatable items. So a repeatable item is what we call a template. So once you do it more than once, we want you to template it. And once it's templated, it can then be used in automations. So, Joe, I think we went through this kind of here. And how would you was that intuitive to you, the template part, or is there any part?
It was, because I have a lot of repeatable steps. And I think all tax pros realize that they do certain things the same way over and over again. I have a lot of clients with rental property, and I require that they fill out a rental income and expense fill-in form. It's a standard form that I use for every client so that I don't have to change gears and interpret client spreadsheets or their financial statements. We all know what a Schedule E is. It's the same every time with some added items. So I have one form. Now, TaxDome can give that form to every rental client automatically, and I don't have to do it manually.
So then now I'll talk a little bit about where we helped, right? So, and we being me in this instance that our team does as well. So what I did on my end is I looked at his and I tried to then put it into stages, right? So Joe just wrote out, this is what I do, but I had him write out, the steps here are still you get the information, you prep the return, you get it signed, and then you file it, right? At the end of the day, that's really what it kind of came down to in a very simple manner. So that's what we did then, was after he created that, his process, I helped him look at it, and I looked, and he highlighted the repeatable parts. He then created templates in TaxDome for, and again, this is just starting with the most basic thing of starting to create templates for tasks, which are his internal, to-dos, either for him or for his admin. And once he got that part of the, oh, wait, I can template this stuff, then Joe, you started adding in a lot of communication. Is that right? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, I'm a one-man shop. So any time that I have to spend stopping my work to communicate with a client that I've already started working on is just a time waster for me. And TaxDome sends messages. My clients love the internal messaging in TaxDome. So I can send an automated message at every stage of the preparation process. I have 8 or 10 of them already set up. It's one of the best parts of the program.
So this is the iteration part that we talked about, right? So step 1 was writing it on paper. Step 2 was finding the repeatable items from the existing process. Step 3 was putting it into our pipeline and creating these stages. And we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. And test 4 was the testing and iteration. So that's where, Joe started getting all those messages, is because what he would do is he would create a job. And we'll walk through kind of Joe's process right now. And this is what Joe's been kind of fine tuning and has done so, but really the core of it has stayed the same. But by iterating on it, his communications continually changed, because he realized, oh, I can add a message here. I can add another message here. I can add another message here. And realizing that kind of over communicating is always best, right? Your client gives you the information, and then they pray and wait for you to come back to them whenever it is that you do. So my advice to Joe was to include communications everywhere, right? You are not going to overburden your client. Your client wants a feeling of control, right? We all want control to some extent. And by adding in communications at every step of the way, instead of, let's say your process takes 2 weeks or a month to do a return from beginning of information to when you're done, however long it takes, the more you can keep your client updated every step of the way, the better they're going to feel. So Joe,
and they're not going to contact you and say,
yeah,
have you started my returns? Because they already got an automated message that says, thank you for your organizer. We've started your returns. They're not going to contact you and say, what stage are you at? Because as soon as you start prepping them, they get a message. Or if there's missing information, they get a message. It's like having a press secretary keeping in touch with your clients so you don't have to.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So that was the other thing. My advice to Joe was to not just look at his process, but open his email. And my advice was, look at every email you've gotten for your clients and think, how could I have prevented that email from coming? And then Joe created even more message templates that helped him, preempt all of those things. So Joe, can you talk a little bit about that?
About the different messages that I have?
Just messages and more communication of the having, instead of a reactive approach. So I think firms in general are reactive, right? Your time is precious, and you're always the reason firms don't update their clients is because it takes work, right? You're like, whatever, they'll find out, they'll get a notification when I'm done, instead of having them updated every step of the way, which is better for the client. So can you just talk about going from a reactive to a proactive using this system?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fully automated. I don't have to do anything. When the organizer goes out, they get a message that the organizer is in the portal, and they can address it at their convenience. When they submit the organizer, I'm automatically notified, and then the client gets another message automatically. They don't have to do anything. It says, we've received your organizer. We've begun working on your returns, which I will do. At any point, if there's missing information, I click a button and the client gets a message. I don't have to sit and type a correctly worded email. I only do it once because it's the same one for every client. We've noticed that your return is missing some documents or information. We'll go over that in the pipeline later. After the information is received, I click a button, the client gets a message. We've all gotten that call that says, did you receive the information I sent? Yes, I received the information you sent. This does that automatically, so you don't have to ever deal with that. An automated message when an extension is requested, and an automated message when the extensions have been e-filed. When it gets to be deadline time, clients want to know if their extension has been e-filed. When I click complete on extension e-filed, this message goes out and puts the client at ease. If there's a rejected e-file, there's a message. When clients are requested to pay for their returns and sign, they get a message that requests that specifically. Some clients don't understand with the invoice lock to document feature that they have to pay first. So they'll start a communication. Every unnecessary communication with a client costs money because it costs you time. This message answers their question before they ask it. You have to pay and you have to e-sign. After they pay and e-sign, sometimes clients will contact you and say, "Did you get my signature?" That's over, because TaxStone will automatically send a message that says, "We received your signature. Thank you. You won't hear from us unless there's a problem." Another thing I did in several of my messages was I had a line at the end that says there is no further action required, so that when you send a message, you're not inviting unnecessary responses. Really, most of these are to keep the client informed. I can't wait for this to be put into practice this coming tax season.
Awesome. Awesome. So Joe, can you go to your workflow? So to this one. So just so people see kind of what happened, Joe has created those stages that he had in his original tax return procedures. Now, the only thing that he's added onto it is he's added some additional steps in between. But we're going to run through a sample job. So for those kind of that are not aware, what we do is we want to, instead of sending an organizer manually, which is just living on its own, we want you to put the organizer as an automation in your jobs. So what Joe's going to do is he's going to add a job for his test client, and we're going to walk you through exactly what this looks like, both on the firm side and on the client side. Okay.
An important point, I think, Ilya, is that I didn't have to create this pipeline from scratch. I used the TaxStone 1040 pipeline template, and all I had to do was make some changes to make it fit me, which was really easy.
Yep. So there's a lot. So before you click in here, so what I wanted, all that Joe did here, so he clicked add job, and we're going through the manual add one job at a time workflow. But you can, this exact thing that he's doing, you can do for 1,000 clients at once. If you want to start bulk start 1,000 jobs at once in the beginning of January, let's say you're a tax preparer, you want to get all the organizers out in the email. So what Joe is doing here, we're just doing it for one client. But again, the same, before you click, don't click yet, before this can be done for many clients at once. And now the only thing that Joe has done that we're not showing here is he has created a job template. So the job template is what pre-filled some of the information that you see here. So for example, his template of 1040 return, he gave it a name. So by default, all of these are going to have, you see how it says last year 1040 account name. So that means the job is going to be named with last year. So if it's created in December, it's going to say, 2021. But if you create this in January, which is how this is envisioned, it's going to say 2022 1040 for the account name, which in this case is going to be Michelle Rudolph. So this way, whenever he looks at his list of jobs, he's going to see 2022 1040 Michelle Rudolph, and that's how he thinks of his jobs that are created. Now, the bigger your firm is, the more templates you might have depending on different clients. So you might create, and I think Joe, I believe you created an 1120 template as well. So a 1065, however, you might want to create different templates based off different priorities, different assignees. So meaning the person on your team who's going to be working on it, different priorities, different due dates. So you can create as many job templates that you want to not have to repeat that information over and over. So, okay, so Joe, he is going to be creating this job, and let's see what happens and show here. So these are the two automations that Joe has in here. He's got an organizer that's created for the client, and he's got a message that's sent to the client letting them know that the organizer has been uploaded. Am I right on this, Joe? Any other comments here?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it would be helpful for tax pros to envision the job card as the file that they have on their desk for the client. Instead of it being a manila file with papers in there, it's all digital, and it's all in one place on this job card concept. Once you experience it, it's fantastic. Okay,
so let's create this job. And again, remember, this can be done it says the job was created. This can be done once for one client, or this can be done for 1,000 clients. We're just doing this for one client at once. Now you'll notice this is also why we don't say go send an organizer manually, but you should use the job, because on this paper file that Joe was talking about, you can see the individual tax organizer that has been, you can see all of the context for this job, right? So the items that are on this, the items on this card, they're easily accessible from this one place, because over time you might have many messages to clients. You might have many documents all, scattered all over the place. You might have many invoices or organizers. This way, the job keeps it all organized. So whenever you want to look back at this file, everything's in one place.
If I could add something,
Please.
This is the place that I go to every time I open a job. Every single time I look at a job card, it's going to say organizers, messages, and we'll see how it has tasks and how many are in there. This tells me exactly where I am with every client, no matter where they are in the process. So this section right here, this is home plate.
And one thing just to comment on here, for those of you that are using this, we're updating the interface of this, what you're seeing here, to be wider, because there's a lot of information that you might want to see that is, basically our data is showing sometimes you might be able to see only very little. So what we're going to be doing is we're currently in the process of updating this, so it'll be wider so you can see the information better right from the screen. So, and Joe, do you mind clicking out of this for a second? Yep, and just go to the right here. Perfect. So the job has been created, and again, you can see it's in stage 1. And now you can the same way visualize that you have 1,000, January 5th, you've done this for 1,000 clients. All 1,000 clients are going to be in here. And if you go back to what I was telling you originally, is exactly whose ball the court is in. Joe has to do absolutely nothing for these 1,000 clients. He doesn't have to check on them. He doesn't have to remind them, because there's automatic reminders built in to the organizer, which you can set up in the template, so that if your client doesn't submit it in a week or however you set it up, they're going to get an automatic reminder. So neither Joe nor his team have to remind the clients or really check in on it whatsoever until the information has been provided to them. Okay, so then Joe on my end has now sent me an organizer, and I'm going to complete the organizer on my end, because again, this is created automatically. So I'm just going to, on my computer, kind of submit this for Joe.
Can I throw in one point, Ilya?
Please do.
One of the great things about TaxDome are the automatic reminders. Tax pros have a terrible time sometimes getting clients to react to their communications. If you send an organizer, they need to respond to it. But in TaxDome, you can choose the interim period of the reminder and how many times you want the system to remind them by message or email automatically. And you can do that with e-signatures. You can do that with invoices. You don't have to spend your time chasing clients, which takes a lot of our time or the time of our staff. I'm the staff here, so I don't want to spend time doing that. The reminder function available throughout this platform is money in the bank.
Yep. So I'm submitting the organizer, and Joe, if you will refresh your page. So on my end, I'm the client, I submitted the organizer. And if you notice, remember, there's 1,000 clients in stage 1, and now one of those clients has submitted the organizer. So Joe now sees exactly what he has to work on. Now, Joe, can you walk us through a little bit about what do you do now that something's here, and what first prep means to you?
Yeah, this is so great. When I get up in the morning and I look at this what I call the solitaire screen, if there are any organizers in stage 1, I don't have to look at them. I don't have to do anything with them. But as soon as one hits stage 2, I numbered the stages for my convenience. You can number them or not. I know that I have information uploaded to the portal, documents that will allow me to prepare a return. So I can open this job card, and now in addition to an organizer, 2 messages, and I have tasks as well. I can see that the organizer was finished and submitted by you. You don't have to remember what each client did or where they are, because it's all here. I can tell that the client was sent these 2 messages, and now I have a task to complete. I have to prepare the return. So I will go to the client's account, look at the uploaded documents, prepare the return, and one of 2 things is going to happen. Either I have enough information to complete the return, in which case I'll change the status to completed, and it will automatically go to the billing stage. Or there are some cases where you don't have enough documents. There's something missing, you notice, from the prior year. Which one do you want to play with? It's one of those two.
Let's go through, can you walk us
Add
through a little
everything?
bit about, let's walk us through, let's do this one first. So you're doing first prep. And now let's mark what you've got all the information. So let's just say that, let's just see that. So you've got all the
All I
information.
have to do is mark this completed, nothing else, okay?
Okay,
So
let's
as
do
soon as I click completed, the job card automatically moves to stage 8, which means I have to do something else. I have to invoice the client, and I do that through TaxDome, and I lock the invoice to the document. So I have to be paid first, and then I request the e-signatures. But if I'm done for the day, or if I'm going to lunch, or if another client comes in, I don't have to make any notes about where this client is in the workflow, because this tells me what I have to do with every job card in this stage.
Awesome. Awesome. And Joe, so there's some questions here. I think that this is good really to see is, can you walk, why did this job, when you marked it complete and first prep, why did it go all the way to stage 8 from stage 2? Why did it skip 3 to skip all those other ones?
It did that because in my pipeline, which has 12 stages, and again, I didn't create this from scratch. I used the TaxDome library template. I have set this up with these auto move buttons are turned on. So when the tasks in a stage are marked complete, the job automatically moves to the next stage. Now, this is the fun part. So we're talking about stage 8.
Before we go to stage 8, can you walk us through why it skipped from 2 to 8? So what's happening here?
It skipped that because a job card always moves left to right, but it will only stop at a certain stage if the conditions are met. Stage 3 is missing documents, and this will only accept a job card if it has this label tag missing documents, okay? If the job card doesn't have that, it'll go to the next one. Stage 4 says run for the tag extension requested. If my job card doesn't have that, it'll go to the next one, and so on. And because my job card here doesn't have any of these parameters, it's going to stop at stage 8 automatically.
Right. So, and just to kind of expand on that for those. So what Joe has done is said that for the clients that's why we did the simplest case first. Simplest case, information comes in, he's got all the information, he prepares the return, he goes out the door, which he applies no tags to the client whatsoever. But if he doesn't have information, or if he needs to do an extension, then he can go through these. So now, Joe, let's do another job. Let's create another job and show it what it looks like with when you do need information so that people see. And I'll get another organizer and I'll mark it complete.
Michelle Rudolph doesn't really file 3 tax returns every year.
Well, actually, on this interesting, so the one thing you can kind of comment, one thing I wanted to kind of comment is here is, see where it says last year 1040, you might get a new client that needs 3 tax returns, right? They might be behind. So what you would do is you would simply add the jobs, but instead of last year as a code, you can put in 2019, 2018, whatever it is that you need them to prepare. So it's very, very possible and likely that you will have clients with multiple jobs because the process is exactly the same. Whether or not you're preparing, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, whether you're preparing a 2020 or 2021, it's going to be exactly the same. Would you agree?
It is the same, but we're charged with keeping the information for each year separate because the years don't combine. And TaxDome will put in 3 job cards, 1 for each year, which is what we would do with files.
Yeah. Okay. So we're starting a new job here, and I'm going to now complete that new organizer quickly on my end as Joe's client. And one thing to comment on here is you can, if you have people that come into your office, you can, complete the organizer on their behalf. So you can actually open the organizer as a practitioner and submit the information on their behalf as if they were in your, as if they were completing it. So you have that option as well. Not that we recommend it, but it's definitely an option as well. Okay, Joe, if you can refresh your screen. Okay, so now Joe, you're working on this other return. You don't have the information. What are you doing? You need, and if you can itemize specifically what you're missing so that we can put it into the words of, of the
Absolutely.
listeners.
This is my favorite part of the whole workflow platform. This is my favorite part because it's going to automate things that were so frustrating, that are frustrating for every tax pro. So here's what we do. You have a client gives you documents and they're missing something. Okay. They're missing the consolidated 1099 or something else. All I have to do is move this to the next stage, missing documents. I have set up my pipeline to automatically tag this account missing documents when I move it there, which is pretty cool that it does that. And it's going to send a message to the client that says there's missing information. And I wrote out my message to say something nice, and that a list will follow. So those two things happen.
So one thing I think I just wanted people to see is on that screen. So when Joe was in first prep, and you can leave it, it's fine. When Joe was in first prep, there's one thing to do, right? The client doesn't have to do anything. The thing to do is for Joe to prepare the return. Now, when he moved the job manually to the next stage, what happened was that Joe there was a little reminder on the bottom that says, hey, you have one incomplete task. And Joe is just used to doing this, which is why he clicked it. It said you have one incomplete task. And what do you want to do with it? Do you want to keep the task as is, meaning keep it as in progress, or I still need to do the first prep? Do you want to delete the task to get rid of it? Or do you want to mark it complete? So what Joe did is, that's just the default method. He marked it complete. So that's why you see that little number one, there's only one item that's still pending because it's all, that's been complete for here. So that's the one part that Joe just kind of did there.
TaxDome marks that complete automatically.
Right.
Because I moved to the next stage. So here's where the magic happens. Are you ready? So in stage 3, if I have a missing document, this message went out automatically. But I need to tell the client the documents I need. This is a huge issue for tax pros, and TaxDome makes it so easy. All I have to do is click on the message, and it says, hey, we've begun processing your tax returns, and we've discovered there may be missing documents. We will upload a task on this message, and it's right here. I don't have to go anywhere else. I don't have to make a phone call. I don't have to initiate an email. All I do is say consolidated 1099, and let's say I need Social Security card for Kathy, and I can put as many items as I want here, and they have a checkbox. As soon as I type those in, the client gets the task list. I don't have to do anything. And then this job card will sit in missing documents until the client checks each of those boxes. If there's 2, they have to check both. If there's 3, they have to check all 3. As soon as the client checks those boxes, this job card will automatically move to second prep. And in between the time I send the message and address the return again, I don't have to waste any time on it at all, which is money in the bank.
Okay. So, and Joe, I think there's some questions here in terms of, how that checklist came about. So, and I'll answer it from my end first. So theoretically, the information you need from the client will have been gathered in the organizer originally. Now, if you're missing specific items, now, Joe, and you can speak to it from a practitioner standpoint, the items, do they tend to be the same, or are they're unique per client? Everyone has different missing information. How would you say it?
It could be any of a number of things. And you have to tell each client what they're missing.
Right. So that's why Joe, the way he set it up is the template to begin with says, we're going to add your list of items that are missing here. And then he adds them in right away, because this way he's looking at the file right now. He's working the tax return. He sees, I can't do it because I'm missing, the 1099 from so-and-so, or I'm missing the W-2 from so-and-so. And he itemizes those items for the client right there and then. So as soon as the client provides those information, that job will automatically move over to second prep. And the second prep is what Joe has set up to show him the clients that have not, and this is kind of where it comes in as a, you kind of customize it to what you want. So my original recommendation to Joe was to send the organizer back to the client. That was my recommendation to Joe, which is one option, because Joe, do you mind going to this client, clicking on organizers?
Where do you want me to go?
Just click on in this tab right here, click on the organizer inside the client. So this organizer is already been finished. Now, this is my original advice to Joe. Let's say he's missing, theoretically, he's getting information from the client and the client didn't put in some of the information that Joe needs, for example. So Joe, you can click at the top, the three little buttons at the top, and click unsubmit. So this was my original advice to Joe, was to mark it as unsubmit and give the client feedback here. Say, hey, please give me your W-2, please give me, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And then the job goes, and then move the job back to the organizer stage. So the client, once they submit the organizer again, it will come right back to first prep. Now, Joe didn't like that because for him, he said it was important to be able to see the clients he's seeing for a second time separately from the clients he's seeing a first time. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So that's why Joe created a separate stage called second prep, that as soon as the job comes from the client completes the information and it will skip. So if you look here, the client is in the third stage, missing documents, and there's a task list for the client. Now, stage 4 and 5 are about extensions. 4, 5, 6 are all about extensions. So unless, and we'll talk about that separately. So unless Joe marks them as needing an extension, it's going to automatically skip those. And second prep, Joe, do you mind clicking on the stage conditions at the under number? So this is to the question of somebody, why does the job go to, why do these clients who are missing information go to stage 7? Is that if you recall, stage 3, one of the automations added the tag missing documents. So Joe moved the job to missing documents. This added the tag to the client missing documents, which means now that stage 7, which is only for clients that have missing documents, will go there. And Joe, can you kind of explain that again? Because I think I might have confused some people.
Yeah, it is a little bit confusing until you do one or two and the light bulb goes off and you get it. Most tax professionals have at least a rudimentary understanding of computer programming. And I am not a computer programmer by any means, but after doing a couple of these, this if-then logic that TaxDome uses is very natural for tax pros because a lot of the tax forms that we use all the time have if-then logic. It's just that TaxDome has put that in the pipelines. I had so much fun with this logic. I actually added this extension section. And historically, I've never billed clients for extensions because I don't have the time. I need to get on with billable work. But TaxDome allowed me to automatically send an invoice as soon as an extension is requested. So this is going to do two things. It increases my cash flow. And I believe that it's going to cause clients who've paid a deposit to get me the rest of their information more quickly rather than October 3rd. That's something that I never would have done manually that I can now do automatically.
Okay. And Joe, while you're here, do you mind expanding stage 7 for a second? So Shannon had a question of saying, hey, but if I tag the client as missing documents, this is going to cause a havoc for my process because I'm going to have missing documents on this client forever. But what we've done here is that the job enters the 7th stage because they were missing the documents and they've provided them to you. And now they're in second prep. And now the tag missing documents is being removed automatically. And Joe, can you just highlight that and talk about that for the team?
Yeah, and actually the missing document tag is added automatically if I put a job card in stage 3. I'm doing a tax return. I know from last year there's something missing. I drag the job card to stage 3. It automatically adds the missing tax documents tag and it automatically sends a message. As the process moves forward, when a job card gets to stage 7, it automatically removes the missing tax documents tag. There are 9 or 10 different things that can be automated in the pipeline. Tasks, messages, tags is one of them. So you don't have to go through your client list and manually track this stuff. If a job card is moving through the pipeline, everything's happening automatically. It's amazing.
Cool. So here we've covered 2 cases. And Joe, do you mind going back to the workflow? I think it's your first tab that's open. So the first one was you get the information, first prep, you've done the tax return, you skip the extension part, you skip the missing documents, you go straight to go, so to speak, straight to uploading the tax return, which is what you have to do. And you can upload the tax return directly, from your tax software into TaxDome, and you can print it directly from your tax software. Joe, do you do that? Do you use the TaxDome app?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Every tax return is printed to the TaxDome app. You select the client and click upload, and it's instantaneous. There is 0-second time delay.
Okay. So you're uploading the tax return, not even in TaxDome, you're doing it straight from there. And then you're also doing the signature and uploading, you're creating an invoice, which you're doing manually because you bill each client separately. And then you're linking the invoice and you're linking the signature to the job. Can you walk us through that a little bit? And then we'll show people what we mean by the signature.
Yeah. And here's where you helped another light bulb go off for me. This job card is key to anything you want to happen automatically. I prepare a tax return, I upload it, I print it to the TaxDome app, I create the invoice in the TaxDome app, and then I lock it to the tax return and click upload. Then I request e-signatures after the upload. But to maintain automation, I have to link the invoice and the signature request to this job card. Once I do that, I can look away and not look back and never have to check on this again. So if I created an invoice for this tax return, I can link the invoice to here, and the job card will not move this from this stage until that invoice is paid. If I link the signature request to this job card, both things have to be completed before the job card goes to transmit e-file. What we don't want to do is we don't want to ever transmit an e-file that hasn't been signed, and we don't want to transmit an e-file that hasn't been paid for. This job card is the key to automation. As soon as I create the invoice and request the e-signature, it becomes a task in here. I've created an automated task, and as soon as I do that, I click that it's complete, and I click complete that I've uploaded the tax return. The next task has automatically been created that I have to e-file it, but only when it's paid and signed, which you did. You paid the invoice and you created the and you signed it, so it automatically moved to my next stage, which is transmit. I don't ever have to go through a stack of 20 or 50 tax returns every day to decide which ones to transmit. I transmit the ones that hit stage 9.
So Joe, I think one thing kind of skipped over here, but I kind of want to highlight this. And from the TaxDome end, I will say that this is definitely a deficiency that we're working on, is that so anything that is created automatically as an automation will automatically be linked to the job. So Joe, do you mind clicking on the job in stage 8? So remember, the documents, the tasks, the organizers, those are all, the tasks, those were all created automatically. Now, what we wanted to show here is, and what I say the deficiency in the sense of when you're uploading the document, it's not that intuitive right now. It's something we're working on to link it automatically during the upload. So you first have to upload the document, and then you have to link it to the job to make the signature work. So this is called linking manual elements. So if the invoice is created through an automation, it'll be linked there automatically. But because Joe is creating each invoice individually, he has to create the invoice and then open the invoice and say, hey, and open the job and link that invoice to this job. And now once these items that have a to-do, right? So an invoice has to be paid by your client. The signature has to be signed by your client. These become the dependency that we were talking about earlier. So when these items are linked to the job will only move when all of the items in the stage are complete. So when Joe clicked done, he just clicked done for himself as if, the little reminder for himself to upload the tax return. He marked that done. Because there were no other dependencies at this time in this stage, the job moved over. But here, what we wanted to show is this is a different job where he's also linked that 8879 document for his client to sign. And if you see that right there. So what Joe has done is actually, Joe, open that job again and expand the documents and unlink that document. So that little X on the right. So I want you to show what it's like, how you would actually link. So you've uploaded the 8879 and you've requested the signature. Now what are you doing?
I go to this button and I link the invoice because all my invoices are custom, and I link the request for signature,
Oh, it's under the documents, link document.
and it is,
And this is what I meant, is that we're working on making this simpler so that when you're uploading that 8879, you'll be able to link it directly to the job automatically. So now this document 8879 is waiting for me to sign. And now I, as the client, and Joe, do you mind just clicking into the click back so you're on the workflow page? And it's here. I'm going to now sign the document on my end. It's 8879. We'll draw it in there. Search.
linking the invoice and request for signature, the 8879, means that the tax pro never has to go through all their emails and all their files to decide what to do. That takes a lot of time when you have a lot of clients. Any time is worth money. This fully automates who paid, who signed.
Yep. So just now I signed, and Joe, if you can refresh the page and see this job at number 8. So now the items have been done, and because the client signed, Joe did nothing. The job has moved automatically to number 9, where now, Joe, what do you as the preparer do here, and what do you see on your screen?
Now I know these are paid and signed because they wouldn't have gotten to this stage unless they were. I'm going to e-file any jobs that are in this stage. And as soon as I can say, hey, completed, done. And now these jobs are recorded as having been transmitted to the IRS. The job card is everything.
Yep. And then remember, we talked about the communication, right? So can you click on the little lightning bolts at number 9 and number 8? So remember, Joe clicked the e-file tax returns, but in addition, he also had a message go out to the client, right?
Yeah, because when clients do something, especially with tax professionals, because every stage of our process is so critically important, clients will sign something, and then they'll send you a message and say, did you get my signature? And we don't want to spend time answering that. So TaxDome automatically sends a message that says, thank you for your signatures. Multiply that amount of time times 1,000 clients, and I've saved an enormous amount of time. Enormous.
Yeah. So just to kind of quick, and yeah, and number 8, exactly. So here you're talking about, again, you had the task created for yourself to upload the tax returns, which is just a reminder for yourself to do it. And then as soon as you've done that, you finished what you have to do. And you've linked it, and you have that other reminder to link the 8879, the invoice to the job card, which again is a reminder for yourself, because quite frankly, like I said, that's for you, because at TaxDome, we don't make it that easy to do that right now. And like I said, that is something we're going to be working on to make it even easier. So as soon as you're uploading the document, you're going to get a prompt to link it to the job automatically, because of how important that we realize it. So I'm going to ask another poll here again about these manually linked items. And what it should come up on your screen now any second. I kind of want to talk about this is because I think many people are not aware that you can have dependency with signatures, right? And what I mean by that is, as soon as the client completes the signature, or the client completes the invoice, or other things that they have to do, the job will move over automatically. And Joe, do you how important do you envision this being for your practice relative to how much time this took before of chasing them for 8879s?
Well, the first thing is, when you use the word dependency, we all think of children. Just so you know, everybody just thought of children when they read that word, but you mean an automation. And
Correct.
It's very, very important, because for all of my remote and virtual clients, I don't have to go back and check the status of everything repeatedly, because TaxDome does it automatically. If you have to do the same thing over and over and over again, it not only it takes away valuable time, but it causes stress. And we really can't afford to be stressed out during tax season. Taking repeated functions and having them automated saves time, and it also reduces stress level. In the Do Taxes Make Money Facebook group that I started, it's all about extreme efficiencies, being more efficient, so you can do more tax returns in less time with zero stress. And TaxDome is a big part of that now for me.
Awesome. So let me go back to kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, Joe, if you mind, I'll share my screen for a second. Let me share my screen here. And Joe, can you walk me through a little bit? I think one of the issues that people have is understanding jobs, pipelines, what that means. Can you, what clicked for you when you saw this? And I remember you mentioned workflow solitaire, but this might help other people as well.
Yeah, when I first heard pipeline, it didn't mean anything to me. What is it? An oil pipeline? What's a pipeline? I don't understand it. And then I saw the workflow graphic, and it occurred to me that it's really like a game of solitaire. That's a very easy way to understand it. In a picture a game of solitaire, each card represents a tax return or something you get paid for. Each column, left to right, is a stage in your process. There can be any number of cards in any stage, and they just move left to right according to the way you set it up. It's graphically very easy to understand and comprehend.
Yep. And then I wanted to kind of highlight examples of what this looks like for your client when you're able to have automated communication. So if you look here, there's a couple of, this is kind of, a graphic of like what it would look like for your client, but you can see that on February 3rd, they're going to get a message saying, hey, I got your organizer. February 5th, once you've reviewed it, you're saying, hey, we started work on the return. And this is all automatic. February 11th, your client's going to get another message. And this is obviously all samples saying, hey, your return is done. And what this does is it keeps your client up to date at every step of the way. And this is critical. See how it says, please settle the invoice. Once done, we'll e-file. And then once e-filed, it says, hey, thanks for working with us. Please leave a review on our Google. And I see that somebody here is also saying that their last message also sends a message and asks for a Google review, because again, you want to grow your business. So you don't want to think about remembering this, but every single time a client goes to the end, you want to have a message for them automatically. And this is really important.
The great thing about these automated messages is every business owner has their own tone, their own way of communicating with clients. And all of these messages are written by you in your tone, the way you would talk to your clients. These are not pre-written messages that don't reflect the way you speak with your clients. That's why I love them.
Yep. And then this is just kind of what it looks like for your client side of these tasks, right? So remember, you can, if they're using they can use obviously the desktop app, the web, from their computer, they can access it, or they can access it from their mobile phones on Android or from iOS. And you can see exactly what these tasks look like to them. It's an easy checklist that they can always exactly see what you want to do. And this is why this is so useful relative to just sending an email saying, hey, can you send me your W-2? Because the email is not trackable, right? An email goes out, poof, it's gone. There's no way to follow up of who am I missing information for. There's no way to create an automation from an email because there's no follow-up there, right? Versus here, there's a clear task, a clear to-do. As soon as that is done, and again, you can mark it complete on your end too, right? Because you're always going to have those clients that upload it, but don't tell you about it. You can always just mark it off complete. If you see it in, hey, we got the W-2, mark it done, and the job will move over automatically. So it's two-way. It's obviously intended for the client, but you can always do it from the client side as well. And this is kind of, Joe, I think, during our call, you mentioned this is kind of light turned on about the information, right? That they fear not having information. And this is kind of, again, we want to really highlight the difference between your client sending information and not hearing anything for a while versus getting updates every step of the way, kind of really, assuages their fears.
Absolutely.
Got another one here. Just, we really wanted to drill this into you is that people who get updates from their accounting firm, they're going to be happy. It's going to really make a big difference in your client experience. It's going to make a big difference for you have to think of things two ways, right? You live and breathe tax season. For you, this client is one of X clients that you're processing. For them, they're one of one. And everybody wants to be treated special. But if you are sending manual messages to thousands of clients at once,
can't do it.
You can't do it. It just doesn't work. So this is a way for you to deliver those customized updates for your clients, to keep them, to really give them the control that you're working on it, because you are, right? Think of all those steps between by the time the client gets the information, especially the bigger your team is, right? If you have managers, if you have admins, if you have different levels of review, if you've got, a reviewer wants edits and it goes back to the client. If they had a message saying, hey, your return is done, it's in final review, that's going to mean so much for your client when at the same time as you have a task for your manager to review the return, having a message go to the client saying, hey, it's in review, really, really, really makes a big difference in the client experience. And again, clients hire you for two reasons. Number one is obviously to get the work done. But secondly is they can go to TurboTax, right? At the end of the day, people can go to TurboTax, and you have to remember that it's the value you're delivering and you're giving them peace of mind. That's really, big way of what they're hiring you for, is peace of mind outside of the, actual work that you're doing. It's complex and so forth, but at the end of the day, and somebody was asking about, big picture AI and so forth. TurboTax is going to prepare everything automatically. Whatever they're not doing today, they're going to do it tomorrow. They already started doing S Corp and TurboTax, and it's going to keep going in that direction. And the way you can continue to deliver value to your clients, and that's a whole different discussion, kind of, not want to go there, but one of the ways you can continue to deliver value to your clients is to continue to give them peace of mind through constant communication.
TaxDome messaging, automated messaging, keeps the personal in personal service for us.
And then, so before we go here, I kind of wanted to just, again, show people, and then we'll have a Q&A, and we're running a little over, but I think this is valuable for everybody. So I'm staying on. I hope you guys are staying on. Joe's staying on. So I hope you guys are finding this helpful. So again, we wanted to talk about how to start the jobs. So Joe showed you one by one. You open your pipeline, you click add job. You can select one or multiple accounts, or I'm showing you here from the client list. You can filter for your clients. Let's say you have them tagged 10, if you've got 1040s, you got bookkeeping clients, filter for the clients that need the specific job you're going on, bulk select them and click add job. So you can, like I said, start 1,000 jobs at once. The other thing that we mentioned, we didn't cover this here, manage schedule. And what that means is this is for your recurring jobs. So instead of let's say you want to go on vacation in January. In the first week of January, you don't want to do anything. There's nothing for you to do. You don't have information from your clients. You'd rather spend an hour today setting this up. In the words of the infomercials from back in the day, set it and forget it. You can click manage schedule and select the clients you want the jobs to start for and the date you want them to start. So instead of you manually on January 5th as a random date starting 1,000 jobs, you can set a schedule that these 1,000 clients will have a job start for them on January 5th. So that's a schedule versus adding a job today. So adding a job means you're actually starting it. Schedule puts it in a schedule to start when it's time to do so. And Joe, does that make sense to you as a practitioner, what I've just described, these two things?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And TaxDome gives you an enormous amount of flexibility with pipelines. I'm already planning a pipeline to do 1099s for entity clients. I want to do a pipeline for sales tax returns. Anything that's recurring, I have to keep track of, but now TaxDome can not only keep track of the task, but all the communications and all the file management. I'm going to keep adding things to it, which means I can do more work and make more money without adding staff.
And Joe, do you mind sharing your screen? I actually want to talk about this a little about this because I want to show how to manage the schedule and how to set it individually, because previously, when this first came out, click manage recurrence at the top. Previously, every job in a pipeline had the same recurrence. That was just how it was set up originally. And this was months ago, last year, I think even. Now, what we've added in is it's the default. So 1040, for example, you might have a default schedule of all of them are going to recur annually once a year. Now, do me a favor, Joe. Let's say you wanted to separate your clients into different batches. You had, A, B, C, D, and E, for example. Now we're going to create different schedules for those clients. Do me a favor. How many test accounts do you have in here right now?
None.
2? None.
They're all mine.
The Rudolph's account.
That's Michelle. Yeah, she volunteered her account for our benefit.
Let's add her to a schedule. Can you click add accounts? And remember, we clicked manage recurrence, and now we're adding Rudolph to the schedule. Okay, let's add her. And then click recurrence. Oh, okay, that's fine. You can click right here, click the little 3 dots on the right, and click manage. So the January 4, 2023 is what Joe has it set up as the default. But Joe might want to set a different recurrence schedule and a different template and a different assignee for every single client. So to those of you that are using, so Joe here has set up, he's got a 1040 as one pipeline, and he's going to do 1065s or 11, whatever, 1065s, I believe, in a different pipeline.
Yep.
Now, that is one option, right? So this is, again, it's your what you prefer. There are many other practitioners that prefer to have all their jobs in the same pipeline, right? They'd rather have one list of work that they're working on, and then they set up individual conditions and they use the job template to manage that. So as an example, if Joe wanted to have his 1040s and 1120s both in here, he can add all of his, so for example, his individual accounts, he would add to the schedule with a template of 1040, and his business accounts, he would add with a template of 1120. And he would set different recurrence schedules. So Joe, the 1120s are due in March, is that correct?
Yes.
So when would you,
1120 is March 15th. 1120 is April 15th.
So when would you want to start those jobs? When is the ideal time for you to send those organizers and get them going?
I start my entities in the third week of January.
Third week of January. So perfect. So here, if this was an 1120, you can, so change the start date here. See where it says January 4th, set it to when you'd want this to happen. And select the template of, I think you have 1065 or something in there. Yep. So here, before you click save, and he's got it pre-templated that Joe is the assignee for these 1065s. Now imagine your bigger practice. You've got multiple layers of staff. You have multiple layers of entities that you're working on. You can have all of your entities with a different template and a different staffer working on them in one view for them. And this will recur, a job will recur for Rudolph. Imagine that this was, Rudolph's business. You would have the job recur every single year on January 23rd. And Joe might have his tax clients get the, start recurring on January 5th, for example, because he wants his 1040s or those organizers to go out earlier. So here you can set up a custom recurrence for every single account within a pipeline. Does that make sense, Joe?
It makes a lot of sense. And working with these pipelines makes me think about all the things that I do over and over and over again. It's the same story every year. You just pluck out the recurring items, document them here, and you can stop stressing.
Awesome. So Joe, I think we've covered a couple parts. Let's go into, and our team has been answering Q&A. I see 180 questions answered. So thank you, team. You guys have been doing great over there. So I'm so very happy to hear that. But we're going to do some live questions here as well. So we're going to, guys, if you can all, the people that are saying thank you again so much, for happy you're seeing that. Team, if you can just dismiss those so we can easily see the questions that are still pending. So Joe, there's a question here, is how do you send the Schedule E and Schedule C templates automatically? So can you go to your organizer and let's show that a little bit.
Yeah, that is so great. I haven't built out every line yet, but here's my organizer. And I did not have to do this from scratch. I started with the TaxDome library organizer, and then I started changing it to fit the way I work with my clients. So when you get into the sources of income section, this is so great. All right, everybody, W-2, 1099, blah, blah, blah. Those are all the regular ones where you just need a source document uploaded. But then, I have a question. Did you receive income from rental real estate, which has impacts? If the client says no, nothing happens and they move on. If they say yes, this section opens up automatically because these are the conditions that impact this question. The only way they're going to see the rental real estate fill-in lines is if they say yes. And I'd have the same thing for self-employment. Did you have any income from self-employment? If they say no, no pages, no lines, no questions. If they say yes, this section will pop up automatically because I have conditions preset, and these are repeatable. Some people have multiple rental real estate properties. So as soon as you're done with one, you click repeat and it'll create another one. Self-employment, you can have more than one source of self-employment income. The fact that these can be automated like this means more people are going to do the entire organizer start to finish because it's more condensed.
And so Joe, actually, do you mind clicking back? Because this is your personal one. So I want to show people kind of how they can access this. So click back and go to the list of templates. And I'm going to show, click to organizers and click copy from library. And so guys, those of you on here, I'm going to show you the best practice organizer that you guys can start with. And the ones at the top are, so the way, because we have clients globally and somebody was asking templates in Spanish, there are templates in Spanish. So they're going to be, the language is the 2 letters. So ES would be Spanish. So if you click on individual tax organizer best practice, copy that one in, excuse me.
That's the one I started with actually.
So we've made some updates there now. So perfect. Now go back and click on that best practice. So for any firm that's doing this from start, you can see what this looks like. We've added some additional things in here. So the first thing is there's text blocks. So you can give your client, again, as Joe mentioned earlier, in your own words, right? Everyone has different tones. Some people are super businessy. Some people are very strict, very wearing suits and ties. Some people are not, and they're more colloquial and they prefer to have a more, more just regular conversation there. So what we recommend doing is putting a text block at the beginning with general information for your client of, hey, what they can expect. So here we have a little template that says, hey, we're excited to work with you. We explain that the organizer is smart and the questions will change based off their answers. So if you say you have rental income, you're going to see a section there. If you won't, you won't. And this is why it's so much better than, I'm really, really personally against these organizers that are made from tax software. And I know that practitioners use them. I know that tax software makes them, but you have to remember, think like your client and not like yourself. You think that your client wants this. Your client does not want a fillable PDF that they have to work with that reminds them, it's 40, as Joe mentioned, is super long, and ask them all these questions that have nothing to do with them. Because there's two ways of looking at it. You either only ask them about last year and the exact same things. So if they didn't rental real estate last year, you're not going to ask them about it. Or you ask everyone to list their 10 rental properties, right? None of them work. The reason why this is better is because things change. Someone might not have rental real estate in 1 year, but then the following year they will have rental real estate, and so forth and so forth. So this allows you to have a much more interview approach with your clients, as opposed to a a form that they complete, right? Your clients don't want to work for you. Your clients hire you to make their life easier and to put them at ease. Here, if they were across the table from you, you wouldn't list questions in a robotic format. You would follow up based off of the things that they answer you. So this is the same exact idea here. And if you notice, we have all of these conditions set up. So if you notice, dependent information is only, and if you mind clicking, but just hover over that conditions on the right, this shows you exactly, if somebody's married, you ask questions about their spouse. If they're not, you don't. And you can set up these conditions every step of the way. So for example, we asked, what year is this organizer for? And the reason you do that is because tax law changes. So COVID obviously is one of those perfect examples. There's two reasons you want to do this. Number one is, it's obvious to you guys that you want calendar year, but again, to your clients, it might not be obvious. We're about to enter 2023 and you're asking them for 2022 information. Again, this is obvious for tax pros. This is obvious for everybody in our industry. This is not obvious to every single layman that hires you. Making it clear that you need information from Jan 1 to December 31st, 2022 in 2023, as obvious as it is to you guys, this is helpful to your clients because it puts things into perspective, especially those of you that have remote clients that might be living overseas where they might not be on a calendar year. So this really, really brings it to them. And then once you have that information, you can do things like the COVID questions, right? You can, in your same organizer, have that are only going to appear for 2020 or 2021. This is an example. And Joe, do you mind clicking the little gear icon next to COVID questions, just so people can see how this is set up? So here we have a condition set to, please confirm whether it's 20. So the client selected 2020 or 2021, they're going to see the section. Otherwise, they won't. And Joe, so in your testing with Michelle and so forth, how have you experienced this approach versus your, that checklist you were using before?
What do you mean exactly?
So before you were using a checklist when clients would provide you information, instead of the organizer, and now you're using this, you found kind of what difference do you think this will make for you versus using the checklist? Because again, you were not sold before either. It took some convincing.
Yeah, well, this is great because I want to ask the questions that I need to ask my way. And this custom organizer lets me do that. I've never seen a pre-written organizer that was sufficient for me, but I can add the questions that I need because my ultimate goal is to address every tax return only one time. So it's very, very important that I have every piece of information. This lets me ask the questions I want to ask. It lets me ask them the way I want to ask them and put the parameters and intensity for each question the way I want to do it. It's great that it's custom. And it's easy to use for the client because there's several ways you can enter these fields. You can enter a field that requires a number entry. You can enter a yes/no question. You can enter an if/then question. And it's not hard to do. I have less than 8 hours total in the organizer, pipeline, and workflow setup. and it's ready to go. It's ready to go. The organizer needs a little more work, but the pipeline is ready to be operational for this tax season in less than 8 hours. We had a lot of fun doing it.
So there's a couple questions here about uploading documents. Joe, do you mind scrolling up? And I think there's a section on called source of income and uploads. So this is an example, and you can put file upload questions in your organizer. Now, we strongly recommend using this because number one is it organizes everything for you. So the client, you're going to write, don't just say upload the files you have. Again, you're thinking in the world of tax pro, you know all these 1099s and these, all these letters that are there that again, to you are second nature. To clients, they're not. They might not even know that they've received a 1099-G, that you have to send that to their preparer. You want to write that out as much as possible in the organizer and say, hey, give me this file and I'm going to give you exactly what it's named. And if they don't have it, they won't upload it for you, and it keeps it organized. Now, the other part is you want to do this is that they're going to keep getting reminders, automatic reminders to submit the organizer. So again, you don't have to look at it until the organizer is complete. And once it's complete, once it's complete, you're going to see all those documents linked in there as well. So, and I saw there were some questions about pre-filling and so forth. So this is a little sneak peek into what's been released is that we've just released the ability. So Joe, your clients are going to be completing this for the first time, right? So you're just sending the organizer, so they're not going to experience this. But the next year, see all these questions that are here. Next year, when your clients come back, they're going to be able to roll forward all of their answers. So their name, their address, their date of birth, all of those things are going to roll over from the prior year, and they will only have to update the information that changed. So this is, again, a huge, 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 huge step for the client experience. Your clients, the less they have to complete, the better. And while you're still getting the information you need. Now, we are making an update there that a lot of people have requested. So you should expect that before the end of the year, that you'll be able to specify specifically which questions you want to be able to roll over and which you don't. So for example, if you want the source of income and uploads to be completely, new every year, that will not roll over, and you'll be able to specify that in the settings before the end of the year. But the main thing here is that your client is going to spend 10 minutes uploading your information for you, because 90% of the information is the same. It's going to really, really make a big difference. And again, this goes back to why you want to use this versus a paper organizer or an organizer from your software, is that this is all about the client experience, and you have to put yourself in the client's shoes, because at the end of the day, you are in a client service business and you want to make your client's life as easy as possible.
And this can be done with the TaxStone Client Portal app from people's cell phones. And we all know that young people do everything from their cell phone. They don't have to be at a large computer or a PC. They can do it right from their cell phone, which is going to attract a whole new generation of clients.
Got it. Okay. So let's see there's a couple other questions here. Somebody was asking, how do you check reports by tags? Easy. You can filter by client, by tag, and see exactly who those clients are from there. I think we're going to wrap up here. If there's any more questions, please put them in here. And I know our team has been answering all of them. There's over 200 questions that has been asked. Okay, so there's a question, can we pre-populate some of the organizers? So for those of you that really want to do this extra work for your new clients, you can do that. So let's say you can upload an organizer for them, edit the answers and complete them for them. And then when you create the new one, they'll be able to roll forward those answers. So you can do that if you want. And Joe, if you mind scrolling up, I'll just show you how to do that. Click the little 3 dots on the right. And if you click change answers, so you as practitioners can modify the answers for your clients, whether they're in office across the desk from you, so you can do that, or whether or not you want to pre-populate some information for them so that when they come back the next time, they'll have all this information in there for them. So this is definitely an option for you guys to use. So again, that's up to you if you do want to complete this information for them. Obviously, some people have high value clients that they want to make their life as easy as possible, and it's worth it for you to do this. Totally up to you. Make it go from there. Let's see. Carolyn, you are very welcome. When you have multiple years, how do you get documents put in the correct file, Joe? So very simple. When you upload a file, Joe, I don't know if you want to show uploading a file because it might show your personal information here, but Felicia, when you upload a file, you simply say what folder you want it to be in. And actually, that's one of the automations that we didn't cover here, but you can actually have a folder template that you be created as an automatic file. So you can do that. And to those of you that still, even after us talking about the automating organizers and having them go out, those of you that still want to upload a paper, Schedule E, or by paper, I meant fillable PDF, you can still do that actually. So Joe, do you mind clicking on settings and going to templates and going to folder template. Just kind of want to show this for people that still have the paper organizers that they want to do that. So, and click on any of the templates and you can create your own. So if you expand any of those, you can have files be automatically added to the client profile. So if you wanted to upload a Schedule E organizer and have it in their profile, you can do that, right? So you can have a folder created, organizers, or please complete this, or whatever you want. And you can put your PDF of Schedule E in there. Oh, there you go. Exactly what Joe did. So Joe, what does that mean when you have this here in your words?
Well, before I learned about the TaxDome organizer, I was using my tax checklist, and this was my way to give it to everybody all at once automatically. I won't be doing that anymore because I'll be using the TaxDome organizer, but I only had to put it in this folder one time, and it went to everyone in TaxDome.
Yeah. So again, so for those of you that still, want the paper fillable PDF, you can still do that. Again, what we want to do here is we want to show you the options. We want to show you the best practices, but at the same time, we also understand that people are different. People have workarounds, people have different clients, that, everything is kind of available for you. So kind of wanted to put that out there again as an option here. All right, let's see here. A little tired here. We've been doing this for an hour and a half. Joe, how are you feeling?
I feel great. The more people that learn about TaxDome, the better everybody's going to be.
Good. There's a lot of questions here that aren't really related to what we're talking about here, so I don't want to kind of go off topic. But I think we're pretty good in wrapping up. Those of you that have additional questions, please give us feedback. Let us know kind of how this, how impactful did you find this? And Joe, actually, I'm going to do one thing on my end. Do you mind just kind of walking through, just in general, again, just talk a little bit about your experience as, I guess, what advice would you give yourself when we first started, and your overall experience in doing this? How would you kind of talk about that?
Well, when I started with TaxDome 1 year ago, I used Secure Document Exchange, the portal. I used invoicing, e-signatures, and messaging, just those 4 things. And honestly, if TaxDome didn't do anything other than those 4 things, it would still be worth it. But you asked me to learn about pipelines and workflow. It took me less than 8 hours to have a working pipeline. And now I'm more than excited about identifying as many recurring tasks that I do as I can and automating them in here. For example, the task list in TaxDome is organized by date. There are things that we do. We have to file a sales tax return for some clients every month, other clients every quarter. TaxDome automatically populates the task list. It's a living, breathing thing that I don't have to go in and touch. Once it's set up, you always know what to do. And getting into these workflows, I can't wait until it's populated with all of my virtual clients. Every morning I'm going to get up, and this workflow solitaire screen is going to be my home base. And I know that I'm going to address everything in first prep, and I don't have to address anything else until second prep, and the rest is easy. This is doing an enormous amount of work for me that I really spent a lot of late nights doing for myself. And it was very easy to get from knowing nothing to having a working pipeline, less than 8 hours.
Awesome. And to those of you, again, that are asking, we're going to send out an email with the full Q&A and the recording, because there's a lot of valuable questions, a lot of valuable information in here. So you will get that in there. Joe, there's a question here of, what are you doing for your non-remote clients? The clients that are coming in office. What are you planning on doing?
Okay, so I have a lot of clients through COVID. A lot of in-person clients became virtual clients, but then there was this mix. People have digital documents, so they upload digital documents and then they come in. I'm actually going to incorporate them into the pipeline because the procedures really for them are also the same. I'm going to do a second pipeline for people who come in person so that I will know automatically if they've uploaded documents. When I'm sitting with a client, I have to know if they uploaded documents. So I haven't worked that out yet, but I know it's just a matter of identifying my processes, how they recur, and documenting them in a pipeline. Plus, in our Do Taxes, Make Money Facebook group, I'm going to be talking about my progress with this and sharing what I learn so everybody can learn along with me. every tax pro is welcome to join.
Great. So Joe, there's a question. How are you moving your in-person clients to TaxStone? It's a question from another Joe.
I don't necessarily want to move all my clients to TaxStone. I want to retain my in-person appointments because that keeps the relationship going and it generates referrals. But I am going to institute a new policy whereby anyone who comes in my office and has a smartphone, they're getting their copy on TaxStone. Period. I used to give everybody a choice as to whether they wanted a paper return or a digital return. But if you give people paper returns, they call you when the mortgage company needs a digital copy, and they call you when Medicare needs a digital copy. Everybody who has a smartphone is getting a TaxStone account and their copy there. And I think that's going to make a big difference.
Joe, there's a question here, and Cheryl, if you're on here, I think this is an interesting kind of a good point to talk through. So Cheryl is asking, how do you issue a company organizer and an individual organizer? So what I want to talk about is, again, here. So Cheryl, our goal here isn't, you're not issuing the organizer, you're starting the job, right? So for an individual, you're doing their individual return. And for their company, you're doing, the 1065, 1120, whatever it is. It's the same, maybe you're working with the same people, but these are effectively two completely separate, they're linked, but they're two separate jobs that you're going to be invoicing for separately, that you need to obtain information for separately. Joe, can you talk a little bit about that? So let's say you had, how do you plan on doing this?
I think I understand the question a little bit differently than you do. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I think the viewer is asking, how would you set up an organizer to ask a company for information? All of my clients who are companies, I already have a system where I get financial statements from them. So the interaction is more brief. I already have their financial statements, so I have the information that I need. But for Schedule C people, for single member LLCs, it would be very easy to have that part of your regular organizer and say, hey, fill in these lines. What was your income? Here's the expense lines. Fill them in for me. These are the documents I need. Very easy to do.
So Joe, and actually I think we'll show, can you go back to that organizer that you downloaded, excuse me, in your settings?
You want me to?
Yes, if you can show I think you already have it open, the organizer, that template that you opened. I think it was in one of the other tabs you already have open. Organizers. And Cheryl, maybe this is what you're talking about with the sole props. Yeah, click this best practice one. So if you'll notice, there's a question of, we have business income as a whole section here. And this is a condition which will open specifically if somebody that says that they have a business, which is a question that you can ask earlier. So if they say, yes, I have a business, you can ask them and they can, you can customize the questions you want, the types of questions you're asking. And Joe, you as a practitioner, does this make sense to you? I mean, obviously you might want to add and remove questions based off your personal.
It makes perfect sense. And when we onboard new clients, we ask the same questions to every business person. This is a way to do that. And listen, if it takes an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours to set your questions up, you only have to do it once, and it will apply to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. It is a repetitive thing that we do that you can save time on.
Got it. Okay, cool. And again, so there's another question, I guess, best practice of having separate pipelines. And again, Joe, you're planning on having a 1040 pipeline and 1065 and a 1099 separately. And other people prefer to have one pipeline with all their jobs that they then have separate template, that they modify templates and add more and more conditions. It really, Andrew, it just depends on what you prefer and what your best practice, I can't say there's a best practice to this, because my personal advice would be best practice. And again, this is personal preference. I'd want to have my jobs separately, because the bigger your firm is, the more you're going to want to see exactly how many each type of job you have outstanding, who's working on it. If you have, I'll give you an example. Let's say you hire, there's a lot of these companies that help you hire staff. We recently did a webinar with TOA Global, and let's say you bring on, 10 offshore preparers, you might want to have, a better insight into who's working on what. So it really, really depends on your firm size and your firm, how you want it organized. I personally would prefer to have separate pipelines. That's my personal preference. There are other people that really prefer one, and they have their own reasons for it, and they make it work for them. It really just depends on how you want information presented to you. And again, some people are visual learners, some people prefer text, some people prefer video. It really just depends on what you prefer. But the main thing I want you guys to kind of take away from this, and Joe, do you mind going back to settings, templates, pipelines, and I want people to see, click on pipelines at the top. And I want, yeah, I think you have some unsaved edits, so you can leave that. And click copy for, so everybody that wants, we have a template here that we've made specifically for this from here. And if you search for, it's for this webinar. If you search for best practice right there, December, get ready for tax season webinar, best practice. If you copy that library, Joe, don't do that because it's going to add all these templates to you. So you might not want to click that. But what this will do is it will add the pipeline and all of the templates that this is basically our template from last year that's been upgraded a little bit, where we have the new organizer and some additional information. So you click that copy button and it'll bring it to your workspace, including the email templates, including the organizer, including the tag templates and so forth. So you do that and then you upgrade it for your personal firm. So modify the language to be how you want it. So Joe has a certain way that he likes to speak with his clients. You probably have a way you like to speak with your clients. Upgrade it for that, check the organizer, play with it. And again, this goes back to the iterate part, right? So Joe, you started with this exact same thing, right? You started with the template that we provided, and then you modified it based off of your edits. So can you speak a little bit about that? And I guess how you would recommend to do that. So how did you actually do that iteration?
Well, I started with this 1040 individual income tax return template, and then I started going through it. And once you see how it works, it starts to become fun. It's like painting the rooms in your house. Once you figure out how to open a paint can and use a roller, the sky is the limit. You can paint any room, any color you want. So all you have to do is look at one, click through it, and it starts to make sense. And it will change. As soon as you finish one section, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I can add another section that does this. And you can go as far into it as you want, or you can keep it short and simple. And once you see how it works, it's very easy to make changes and add things. There are only a limited number of functions, and they're like blocks. You can stack them up any way you want.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Well, there's one final question here from Angela. How do you move stages up and down a pipeline? Now, Angela, I think this is just kind of a nomenclature thing. So the pipeline goes left to right, as Joe said, right? So each job goes from the left stage all the way to the right and goes kind of through those things. The setup of the pipeline is currently vertical, but actually within the next month, this is going to be changed, and this is actually going to look like the pipeline. So it's going to look left to right instead of up and down. So we're redoing this interface as we speak, and within a month or so, this should be upgraded. So you'll be able to, it'll be more intuitive to upgrade this and modify it because it'll match the same left to right.
The workflow solitaire.
Yeah, solitaire. Exactly. Okay, awesome. Well, I think this is it. I think we've kind of gone through a bunch here. So I want to thank everybody here for showing up. If you have questions, post in our community. Ask our team. We're happy to answer them. We will also send an email with this recording with all of these Q&A once it's been organized. So hopefully find that helpful. And again, we really hope that this has been helpful for you. We're excited for you. We're excited for you to be able to, for your next tax season, for you to really use this and other functionality. I know Joe's excited. Joe, how do you feel?
I haven't been this excited for tax season since e-file started. It's really, this is going to allow me to do more work in less time. I thought I was at my maximum number of clients. TaxDome is going to allow me to take on more clients and do less work and make more money. And every tax pro should join Do Taxes Make Money on Facebook. And we're going to keep talking about efficiencies like this that'll give you more work with less stress.
Awesome. And there's just one final comment. I think there's some people that were asking about future enhancements and everything that we have. Our team is, we really strive to be super communicative about our upgrades and what we're working on. So our roadmap has been published. You can keep track in our feature request board of what we're working on, and you can vote on things. So you'll be notified automatically. We have a lot of really cool stuff coming, kind of coming in the pipeline. The way we think about everything is client experience, firm experience, and we really start everything from there. So that's really kind of one of the main, that's why we're so excited about this kind of pre-fill organizer for the clients, because their experience is going to be that much better. For the firm side, kind of a little sneak peek is that we're almost done with recurring payments. So you'll be able to set up a recurring invoices directly from TaxDome, and there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline that we're super excited about. I can go on and on, but I'm excited about this. Joe's excited about this, but I think we do have to let people go. We've been here for almost 2 hours. So everybody, thank you so much. And look out for the email from us. And finally, if you're not in our community, make sure you join our Facebook community. Our team posts updates there. Make sure you're in it. If you're not seeing some updates from us. So thank you again, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
guys.
Ilya.
You're very welcome. And guys that have been helping here with all the questions, Nico, Milos, Mihailo, thank you so much. This has been super helpful. Everybody, thank you so much.
Bye.